Hi everyone, I hope your day's going well. In this video I'm going to be giving you little reviews on 4 different eyeshadow palettes. Each one is very different from the other and it's probably going to seem kind of random. I mean, they're truly not related at all. They're from different brands, they're very different palettes, and I don't know, I may throw around some little comparisons here or there, but more or less I'm just doing this video to get out some reviews all at one time and kind of just, you know, here's my take on these palettes, and then we can move on to some other ones. I might actually do a part 2 palette roundup type video. But there is no question, I feel like brands are cranking out palettes like never before because I think they know that's what people want. There is a good value, I think, in getting a palette and getting so many shades enclosed in one little place. There's definitely an appeal with palettes, but as a YouTuber, you get buried in them very quickly, and then it's like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna actually get all these reviews out? So I hope this is useful for you. The first one I'm gonna be talking about here is the Too Faced Glitter Bomb. And I'm gonna go, by the way, from the palette I like least to the one I like best. So we got 4 palettes. The one I really like least is this Too Faced Glitter palette. However, I do love the packaging. What they've actually done here with the word glitter is put loose glitter in there. Like, you can shake it around and see the glitter moving. I don't know if you can see that, but that's really cool. I respect that. And then what's happening inside, you do have the mirror there, and then glittery shadows, and they are kind of bookended by 2 matte shadows. One is a truly matte white and a matte black, and the white says brightening base, the black says intensifying base. And as I look at these glitters, like, they look really pretty in the pans, and I have worn them and I've thought, yeah, there are some interesting looks that I've gotten with these on the eyes, like maybe confining 2 of them to the lid and blending one into the next and making that really be my pop on the lid. Or I've taken a couple of these shades, like Splash is kind of pretty in this manner, you know, take a full colored creamy eyeliner pencil along the lower lash line and then sort of top that off with one of these shades, and you can get a real pop going on there. I think it's rather obvious that this is not really a standalone palette, okay? So you're gonna maybe use one of these shades as, like I said, the pop on your lid, for example, and you're going to maybe pull in something more neutral to be your crease colors or to create a little contrast. But that being said, it's almost as though they have attempted to make it more of a standalone palette by giving you these 2 matte shades. And I don't really think these 2 fully matte, you know, complete opposite ends of the spectrum shades really play that nicely with these fully glittery colors. I just don't really see it happening. I've tried doing some layering, putting one on top of the glitters or going even underneath it and putting the glitter on top of one of the mattes, and it just doesn't seem to work really well. I feel like the glitter loses some cling, like that really does need something to cling to. And I've been using, by the way, the glitter glue primer from Too Faced along with these, and that works nicely. These definitely, that's a huge point about these, they have to be topping something that's got some tack to it. And that glitter glue definitely goes a step beyond other eyeshadow primers with being a little bit extra tacky. I mean, I wouldn't say it's hard to work with at all. It's not like unbearably sticky. Once you do top it off with something, you're not going to be like feeling the stickiness of that. But these kind of shades need some of that. And while these, you know, white and black shades in their own right are nicely pigmented colors and they're good eyeshadows, it's like this glitter palette was clearly not going to be a standalone thing for most people. And then they threw in these 2 shades that I don't think really layer all that well with what's happening with the glittery shades. And with most of these, they're not like straight glitters. What they are is like a powder shadow that's been infused with some very fine glittery particles. So as you would swatch one of these, you would see some actual like powder pigment, but it's got a lot of concentrated glittery flecks in it. And some of the shades I think are unique, like this glitter goals color. See how that's like a multicolored glitter, but in a taupey gray shadow? Like, it's really pretty. There are some cute accents that you can do with this kind of palette, but when I look at it as the palette as a whole, not that I'm expecting it to be a standalone palette, but I just don't love what was done in the attempt to make it, I don't know, more versatile with the white and the black shades. If full-on glittery shadows are your thing and you feel like you can never get enough of them in different palettes or in different singles, you might enjoy having this selection of 8 here all in one thing, because they can layer up and look nice. My one complaint is that I usually, they'll get me through about half the day. The staying power on these, it's not not that they disappear from my eye. Colors all manage to stay on my lids with like a glitter glue primer. But yet, you know, about half the day goes by, I can absolutely see that I've got glitter on my cheek. And it didn't start the day that way, but some fell away, some lost the cling. And so that's something to be aware of, I guess, if you're considering this palette. And it's really such a personal preference thing, isn't it? I mean, as far as just the glitter shadows go, there are going to be some people who are all about it, like give me more of that kind of thing, and some people are saying, no, those are the kinds of shadows I like least in any other palette I own. The thing that I don't really get with this, like I said, the mattes that were thrown in here, I almost feel like if they threw in a slightly pearly color or something with a hint of a satin finish, it actually would have meshed with these a little bit better, because these fully matte shades, I just don't feel like they layer that nicely with the glitters. Okay, next palette I'm going to talk about is from Tarte, and it's the Clay Play Face Shaping Palette. So this is going to be one of those dual like eye and cheek type palettes. They've given you 3 shades down here that you could absolutely contour your cheeks with. You've got all of these shadows here which could double as both eyeshadows or eyeliners. It could be brow colors. So there's definitely a lot of versatility with this palette. The coolness of some of these shades, like these right in here, yeah, I can put those in my eyebrows and certainly get a look with them. And these shades, you know, not only are they contours, but they can be eyeshadows right along with everything else. So there is multitasking happening in this palette. There's good quality in this palette. It smells good. I don't know, slightly vanilla-ish scent that you may have noticed in some Tarte palettes. I think the shades are easy enough to use. They're pigmented. There's not really much that I can even think of disliking about the formula. I think it's just the palette as a whole. I've seen it. The all matte palette, and I'm a fan of all matte looks. I can be very happy with an all matte neutral eye look, but I've got this over and over in my collection right now. I really like my matte Viseart palette. I've got Kat Von D's Shade and Light, and then I've got Makeup Revolution's take on that very same palette. And just from various drugstore brands that have eventually rolled out their all matte neutral palettes, it's like, okay, I've got it. And on top of that, I've got a lot of contouring palettes as well. And I find myself overlooking this palette a lot for the contouring shades that are in here, because I don't know, I've got it in my head that it's an eye palette. And when I pick up a face palette, I think of going for something different. And this is my own like kind of operator error here with forgetting the fact that this is kind of a 2-in-1 thing. I think what they have here is a very common concept for the eyeshadows that we've seen over and over again with the matte neutral palettes. They tried to switch it up by putting in some contours, but it's just, even still, it doesn't excite me. There's just enough out there right now. This was sent to me. I don't know that I would have sought it out to like buy it on my own. You know, the shades aren't a problem. I'm not complaining about quality. It's just more so the concept and something that I think has been played out. Okay, next palette. And remember, we're working our way up to through these 4 palettes, going from the one I like least to the one I like best. And the next one I'm going to talk about is the Naked Heat palette from Urban Decay. And I have had this on hand for what seems like a really long time. I remember taking it on vacation with me and really digging into it then, and I've been using it on and off ever since. Here's what I have to say about this palette in a nutshell. I think it's a beautiful color scheme. I love the warm color scheme for eyeshadow palettes. I don't have a problem with the quality of these shadows. I think they're pigmented. They apply nicely. I like the matte and shimmer mix here. They've got some shades that have a really beautiful sheen to them, and then some mattes that are just rich, you know, like a really rich plum, also a dark burgundy shade here. I like so much of what's going on in this palette, but it is one distinct color scheme all the way through. It's definitely different from like Naked One, which kind of peppered in several different color schemes, I feel like. Here, it's one general look, and as many different ways as I attempt to use this, I always end up with one kind of similar look, and it's just because that is the color scheme that's in here. And if that's what you want, then you go snatch up this palette. If you love warm shadow looks, this palette does it really well, and I like the looks. I have been so pleased with what I've done, but in terms of versatility, you might go a little bit off the beaten path with some of these. You might leave out maybe a lot of what's happening here, and then you've got just this really basic neutral look. Or maybe you could skip a lot of the central portion of this palette and go to the plum plummy shade and then just work in some of these neutrals. But what I find myself doing, it's like I am gonna jump to some of these midtones at some point for my look, and those shades end up being really warm and they really warm up the crease, and it's pretty, and I like these shadows and I like their quality. But this palette just doesn't take me in a lot of different directions. Maybe I should really challenge myself and see like how many truly different looks, like make a real point to do a lot of different looks with this. I guess what I'll leave you with on this one is that I like the palette. I like it because I enjoy this color scheme, but if you buy palettes and expect versatility and expect like I want to get a big range out of one palette, this wouldn't be the one to go with. Now, leading up to my thoughts on the Subculture palette. So without saying anything now, the theme of this video, you know, leading up to the one that I like best out of everything I've tried, and this may be really like unpopular opinion because I feel like, now I haven't watched a bunch of reviews on this palette, but I look at my YouTube feed and I see all of these thumbnails with like, you know, really strange faces, and they all say like, OMG, WTF, and people just look disgusted. And so this obviously is not getting rave reviews, and I do think that influencers, if you want to call us that, can sometimes be so influential that they influence other influencers' opinions. Yes, I said it. I put out a tweet about this not too long ago, and I said, you know, I'd love to see what people might say about certain products if the opinions could all be like cards laid out on the table all at once and nobody knew what everyone else was thinking about something, and they just truly had to 100% think for themselves and put it all out there. I don't know, I think that would tell everyone a lot. I really don't care what anybody else says about this palette. My experiences with this have been really, really good, honestly. I've enjoyed the palette. As I will explain here, I don't think it's completely without flaws, but I personally like what's happening here. After using Naked Heat and, you know, some of these other palettes, like I opened this up and I thought, this is a creative, really interesting color scheme to me. Just really nice, kind of off the beaten path type colors in here. And as a whole, I think the color scheme is so autumnal, so fall to me. And I love that. I love that it's fall without purely being like warm pumpkin-y shades, but it's like these dark teals and this color that I lovingly refer to as honey mustard, and like all these different things happening in here that I think it's a brilliantly laid out palette. I really like it. And it's very heavy on mattes. The shades that are shimmers are Cube up here and Electric and Adorn. And there's something to know about these shimmers. The formula of these, they're not like your average shimmer shadow where you just kind of dip your brush into it and then I would like dab it on my eyes. With these, I would actually dip my brush in and find I got the most effective like color transfer onto my lid when I would apply some pressure and give it a short swipe. You know what I mean? Because these almost feel a little bit creamy to the touch. And if you picture yourself applying like, let's say a cream shadow to your lid, you would apply it maybe with just a bit of a swipe, not like a full-on paintbrush swipe across it, but just like short little swipes, kind of like this with your brush. And that is what I think causes those shades to transfer down and be as pure and as pigmented as they appear that they would be. Cube is so interesting. It has this pinky sheen to it, and I find myself becoming like addicted to that color with whatever look I'm doing. It's like I toss that on and everything in my look becomes kind of unexpected and interesting, and it's a great overlapping shade. Like it does some really cool things to other colors, kind of a transformer type shade. And before I say too much more about the eyeshadows, this brush that's in here, I always love the brushes. This is a great little blending brush, and this is nice for those like kind of short swipey motions that I mentioned with the shimmers. They always include a fully usable brush in these palettes. So I like the color scheme. I like that there's so much matte in here. It definitely inspires creativity. It definitely causes me to, I don't know, just make some different choices with my eyeshadow looks. But a big thing to know about this is the texture of the shadows. When you stick your brush into these, and certain shades more than others, but when I put my brush into these shades, it will kick up some fallout. It will kick up some additional shadow, and it's not unexpected. Like the very first time I used this and I hadn't even heard one thing about this palette from anyone because I ordered it as soon as I could, like the day it launched. I remember dipping into this Roxy shade and thinking that is kicking up a little more fallout than just about anything. Like it's maybe a little bit more than, let's say, a Lorac matte shadow, and those I would say tend to be some of the softest shadows in my collection. That being said, they're also some of my favorites because they are so intense on the eyes. They have such a capability of being really, really true to color and very intense. So I didn't see that and think, gosh, I hate that shadow. I saw it and thought, well, this is the way these shadows work. Not every eyeshadow in my stash has to perform the exact same way. And also, here's my tendency with applying shadows. I'm a very light-handed person with them. If you've watched my tutorials, I almost always go pretty light with about anything I try, and then I build it up from there. So I'm talking, I will barely tap into a shadow and then go with it. And is anything really hard to blend when you go about it in that just apply a little at a time mindset? No, I think everything actually applies rather easily when you do it that way. Now, if you are with a heavy hand dipping your brush into these and getting a ton on your eye at one time, could you be in a real pickle there? Yes, you absolutely could. And these shades, given how dark some of these are, it can take that heavy-handedness that some people might tend to have and make it a real problem potentially. I generally give every palette this shot. I start small in application with about every palette, and unless it teaches me that I need to do otherwise, you know, that's what I do. So when I see a shadow is kicking up some fallout, here's what I've ended up doing with some of the shades in this palette, and I've seen it most with Roxy and also a little bit with Dawn as well. When I go into that and I see, okay, it's giving me a little bit of extra powderiness with this shade, I'll go back into that godforsaken fallout with my brush and just apply it to the other eye. You know, get use out of it. It doesn't need to be completely blown away, tapped off the palette entirely. Just use it. I don't know, it's been working for me, and I don't find these to be hard to blend together when you just go a little at a time. Be light-handed with it. These are dark shades. These are rich colors. You know that just by looking at it. If you're really trying to wrap your head around this and think, what do I want it? Do I need it? I think there are a couple of factors you should look at. Number one, do you even like these shades at all? Like if you don't think that these colors appeal to you whatsoever, if you're looking and seeing that, like, I don't know, several of them you just absolutely wouldn't ever touch, then skip the palette. But if you are interested in the shades, now let's think about the formula. Does it really frustrate you when you have to be a little bit goes a long way type of eyeshadow applier, or do you just want to be able to casually toss the brush in and get the look and not have any fallout to deal with potentially? If that idea frustrates you, then maybe you want to skip this palette, because these are soft shades. They're so rich, some of them, like if you do make mistakes with it, it can show. But I would not say I have had any more difficulty using this palette than I have other palettes that have had rich pigmented shades. If I compare this to a Viseart palette, like I was kind of looking at this one, like my dark matte palette here. With these shades, for example, they don't kick up as much fallout and they are really pigmented. And I would say I find them to be a bit easier to work with. That being said, I use very little of these too. These are a little goes a long way type shadow. But you're gonna pay $80 for this palette and what, like $45 for this one? So I don't know, there's your difference. But I do like that this threw in some random, like really random and kind of fun shimmers to kind of pop in there with these dark, really pretty mattes. But does it kick up some fallout? Yes. Is it unmanageable? No. And you guys know me, I'm no like shadow application prodigy here, and I purposely did my look today with this palette, and I said I'm just gonna use this quickly because I have kind of fallen into looks with this where I'm like just using so many different shades and I end up taking a really long time, not because I have to, but kind of because I want to. So I just saw today, can I just turn something out as quickly as I ever have with any palette? And I used honey mustard here, or that's actually called Edge, but I call it honey mustard, and put that on the lid. I've got Roxy in the crease. Didn't take much of that shade, by the way. One of my favorite shades, a little bit in the outer corner, this All-Star shade, and Fudge. I've got some of Fudge in the outer corner also. Quick look, pretty much all confined to the upper part of my eye today, and I love it. You know, that was easy. This was a very everyday type look, but very fall, you know? I would say the Modern Renaissance shades kicked up a good amount of fallout for me too. Maybe not as much as that Roxy shade did in this palette, but when I first used it, like I said, zero preconceived notions on the palette, didn't know that there was going to be some public outcry on this. I just kind of thought, oh, noted. That's kind of a loosely packed shade there. And what gets me is that I look around at the whole palette landscape and I think about all the things that I think are far inferior to this palette that people have raved on. And it's kind of just seemed to become the thing to do a real, like, oh, shocking, you know, like video on this palette when it's really not, like, I don't know, top story news, I don't think. Of these 4 palettes I'm talking about in this video, it's definitely the one that I enjoyed the most. So there's my 2 cents on Subculture, Naked Heat, the Tarte Clay Play, and the Too Faced Glitter palette. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I'm just offering my perspective and just stir that up in the mix of everything else that's out there. Might have given you a few different things to consider, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.